Do keep that passage in the Bible open if you're able to. It's great to be with you to speak on Psalm 46. As Graham said, a psalm that speaks to the uncertainty of the world. We live in troubled times, and this is a psalm for an uncertain world. You know, open the newspaper or go to the news website, and there's so much that's uncertain, so much that's frightening. We read of trouble around the world. I got the prayer bulletin from our home church, Parr Street, this morning, and it said, make sure you continue to pray for the conflict in Russia and Ukraine 3 years on. And I kind of thought, 3 years of war, and I can easily miss that, but just good Ukrainian friends at church, and just hearing news of families still there, and there's much to be concerned about. Perhaps much closer to home, maybe there's things that unsettle us, and we kind of think, what can we look to? What can we rely on? Are there any guarantees anymore? It felt like maybe there was a time when you could bank on that, you could be certain of this. But maybe as we look to the world, as we look to the future, things seem uncertain. Lovely to have a younger member with us today, and we for our kids, our grandkids, don't we want a certain world? Don't we fear thinking, I hope that doesn't happen? Lots to be concerned about. And that's why Psalm 46 is such good news when it feels like I'm opening the paper, I'm not seeing lots of cause for hope. I'm looking at the world, I'm not always seeing cause for hope. Of course, there's brilliant things going on, but there's also scary things going on. How do we cope with that? How do we live in an uncertain world? What do we do for our kids as they face an uncertain world? Well, one of the things I mentioned before is one of the things I love about the Bible is that God doesn't just say, don't worry about it, it's all fine, just smile, be happy, and close your eyes to reality. Doesn't say, pretend the bad things aren't there. Because we know deep in our heart we can't do that. Actually, there's a realism to the Bible that life has glorious ups and it has downs and it has everything in between. And Psalm 46 says, in the face of an uncertain world, in a face of a world where things are falling apart, God is his people's refuge. There's 3 pictures here. It's a very visual psalm. If you want to shut your eyes and imagine these pictures, if that will help you, please do that. 3 pictures of hope for God's people in an uncertain world. I know very few people here. I don't know where you are on your Christian journey, whether maybe you've been a Christian for years and years and years. Maybe you're first time in church thinking, what is this all about? Maybe you're somewhere in the middle. Wherever you are, this speaks of the hope God's people can have. And so if you're a Christian here today, this is your reality. If you're still working out where you stand, I guess my encouragement would be, maybe just for 20 minutes, just sort of look through these lenses and think, is that a perspective on the world I'd like to have? Might this be good news if it's true? Might this be worth looking into, having a God like this? And I'd encourage you to find a way to do that if that's the case. 3 pictures of hope. The first is the world is falling apart, but there is this strong, safe city for God's people. Verse 1, God is our refuge and strength, an ever-present help in trouble. Therefore we will not fear, though the earth give way, mountains fall into the heart of the sea, though its waters roar and foam, and the mountains quake with their surging. The picture is of turmoil. Can you imagine it? I mean, it's an incredible sort of description. I think probably not literal, but metaphorical, how it feels. Mountains are falling around people. The seas are right. I live in Kendal. Floodwaters start to rise. We get nervous in Kendal. This is more than just the River Kent bursting its banks. The seas are rising. This is threats coming. And in the midst of that, there is a place of safety. God is our refuge and strength. I can't quite see it. As I walked up the road from parking my car, you can just see the fells of the Lake District with snow on them. If you head out of church, look across. What a beautiful, beautiful, beautiful view of these mountains. I think the picture here, mountains falling. I mean, you look at the mountains, age old. Just picture that weathered granite and slate and whatever else they make mountains of. They're not moving quickly. They've been there for years. We'll come and go. The mountains remain. They're about the most solid, permanent things you can imagine. But here it's as if they're falling into the sea. And maybe the images of everything you thought you could rely on. What if that's not there anymore? Everything you thought was most dependable. What if that's not there anymore? I don't know what it is for you. Family, a family member perhaps. A relationship. A job. The world being as it was a number of years ago when we sort of felt comfortable, and if that changes then we get scared. Maybe it's our health. Whatever we thought was dependable, and when everything else falls apart, at least I've got this. The psalmist here is saying, you know what, if those things go, whoa, everything we thought we could rely on, what happens if they disappear? The mountains falling. Though the seas rise and roar, the seas in the Bible, they're always pictures of threat. This isn't a nice beachside holiday up at St. Bees or somewhere. This is waters, threatening, dark, chaotic waters. This is, what if everything we fear the most, again, I don't know what that is for you, that thing, you think, I don't want that to happen. Among everything else, I don't want that to happen. What if it does happen? Because that's the picture here. Brutal honesty that sometimes all we think we can rely on might fall away. All we fear most might happen. And in the midst of that, we get this picture of God as a refuge and strength, a present help in trouble. Later on, God will be described as a fortress, a place of safety, an ever-present help in trouble. Therefore, amazingly, we will not fear. The psalmists sing here, we will not fear. That is the reality for Christian believers today. Actually, yes, the world can have great joys, but it can have sorrows. The world can have great highs, but it can have uncertain, scary things as well. And when those things happen, when everything seems to fall away, when all the worst things seem to happen, God is a refuge for his people. God keeps his people like a mighty mountain fortress, a place you can go and be safe from everything else that's happening around. Just imagine you're there, you've got kind of walls 8 foot thick, and you can trace your hands down the rough rock thinking, okay, I feel weak, but this fortress is strong. And so I can feel confident even when there's chaos happening out there. God is a refuge for his people. There's the first picture of good news when life seems uncertain. The second picture, it's as if the camera has we've been wide angle. We've been picturing the world and all the chaos, and we've seen this safe city where God's people can be protected. It's as if the camera now zooms and takes us inside the city. Okay, God's people are protected, but what's life like? Are they in there, huddled together, just hoping that one day it will all be over? Just close your eyes, block your ears, and hope that one day it will all be over. Is that the life of a Christian? a kind of retreat from everything. Far from it. Let's join the camera angle in this city. Verses 4 to 6. There is a river whose streams make glad the city of God, the holy place where the Most High dwells. God is within her. She will not fall. God will help her at break of day. Head inside this city. Head inside the people of God. What do we see? Joy. Gladness. Not grin and bear it, hope it will one day be over. But provision. God protects his people. That's the first picture, this fortress. But he provides for his people. That's this second picture. And the river. If you're a besieged city in the ancient world, actually right through kind of Middle Ages, a besieged city, what did you need to survive? You needed a water source. Because without water, no life. And flowing rivers in the Bible are consistently a picture of life. I visited a town in the south of France with some friends, and it was called Puy-Celle-ci, which translates as the well in the sky. And it's one of the most beautiful places I've ever been. It's this kind of in the middle of the valley, there's this sort of sudden, it's not quite a mountain, it's not that big, but this sudden kind of high hill, and then on the top of it is built this fortified town. But amazingly, there was a water source right at the top of this hill, very unusual. And actually, in this valley, the best photos were when the mist came down on the valley. And you could look down into the valley and it was all mist, and then this town would just rise up above it, this fortified town, and hence it got the name, the well in the sky. And it was a place where, when all the wars of the Middle Ages were going on, people could go and find life because there was a water source there. They could go there and be protected and be provided for. The church, the city of God, is a place where there is a river, there is life, and more than that, there's God himself, the holy place where the Most High dwells. God dwells amongst his people, and so the church is a place of life. She will not fall. Whatever, we may read the papers and read about the state of the church, and we may read about threats and whatever else we might fear, she will not fall. God will help her at break of day. Nations are in uproar, kingdoms fall. He lifts his voice, the earth melts. A picture of a God who provides for his people and will protect and will guard them. And for Christians, this is a picture of our reality. God not only protects us, but gives us life and helps us to live lives of joy and flourishing, not grin and bear it and hope that one day it'll all be over. But life, because God is the source of life. If we want to know life, we go to the source of life. That's the picture for us. And we get that in verse 7, we get what I think we'd term the chorus for this psalm. It comes twice, this verse. It comes again in verse 11. The Lord Almighty is with us. The God of Jacob is our fortress. We can imagine this was kind of the chorus to this song. God's people would sing it to celebrate their safety. The Lord Almighty is with us. The God of Jacob is our fortress. I actually spoke on this psalm this week at my church. There's a coffee morning for some of the older folks in the church on a Tuesday morning, and we had a big crowd. We did a great quiz. I love a good quiz. Did a great quiz about 30 or older folks, and then I spoke on Psalm 46. And afterwards, I spoke to one lady in her 80s, and her husband had died, and so she would often come to church on her own and sit down in church. And she said often people would come and sit with her and say, "Oh, can I sit with you? I don't want you to be on your own." And I think she loved that, that warmth and friendliness of people. But she told me, she said, "I often say to them, Well, I'm never on my own. The Lord Almighty is with me. She had taken to heart these words of Psalm 46. The Lord Almighty is with us. That's what it means to be a Christian. It means to be never alone. It's to have the God of the universe, the God that we sang of, who created all the stars and countless galaxies. He's not just a distant, impersonal force, but if we've come to him for refuge, he is with us, personally, to care, to protect, to provide, to lead us and guide us. This is a tender image as well as a mighty and strong image. I'm going to remember what that lady said for a long time, I think. I'm never on my own because my God is always with me. I could just see how that truth was just orienting so much of her life and the joy and the life that came from that. And I thought, that's a perspective I want to have. I'm never on my own. Whatever I see out there, whatever I'm facing, the Lord Almighty is with us. We know far more than they did back then in the psalmist day. The Lord has poured his Spirit into our hearts. He is with us in that incredibly personal way. The final picture. Remember, we've got the first picture, this fortress, a place of safety. The second picture, we've gone inside the fortress and we've seen it's a place of joy and provision and the Lord being with his people. The final picture takes us to the future. Come and see, it says in verse 8. And often in the Bible, come and see in the prophets, that often keys us to think this is now come and look to the future. I think this is a picture of where things are heading in the last few verses. Come and see the works of the Lord, the desolations he's brought on the earth. He makes wars cease to the ends of the earth. He breaks the bow and shatters the spear. He burns the shields with fire. Where is history going? Well, come and see. Come and see, the psalmists say. Let's see where it all ends. Wars ended. Weapons of war broken. There'll be a day when, as it were, we open our newspaper and no matter how many pages you turn through, there will be no wars to report. There will be a day when we open our newspaper and no matter how many pages you turn through, there will be no violence to read about. There will be a day when we open our newspaper and there will be no oppression or injustice to lament. Because God will end it all. He's bringing eternal peace. What a wonderful picture. That is where history is going when finally, in a sense, all of history is rolled up and Jesus Christ reigns forever over the new heavens and the new earth. There will be no more wars. There will be no more conflict. There will be no more injustice. There will be no more oppression. There will be no more uncertain times. That is where history is going. And in a sense, that glorious final day casts its light back now and orients us to live in the light of it. I think that's what verse 10 is. Be still and know that I am God. A verse that's precious to so many Christian believers. Be still and know that I am God. My heart, I am a fixer. I am a want to control things and want to sort it out and want to just kind of wrestle through and sort whatever it is out. And that's why when I read the papers and see the world, often I just find it overwhelming because there are problems I can't fix. But this psalm tells us we don't have to. Because there is a God who is getting history to where it needs to go. And so we can be still. We can quiet our hearts and know that he is God. I'm not God. I'm not the one who needs to ultimately make life okay for my teenage daughter. I'm not the one who ultimately needs to just hold so tightly. Yes, I fulfill my responsibilities, but he is God and he is bringing his kingdom. He is achieving his good purposes. And what can I do? I can be still. What a wonderful thing to sit. When we go to sleep, actually, as Christians, when we go to sleep, that's an act of faith every night. Because we go to sleep and for 8 hours, however it is, 6 hours, we do nothing. But the world still turns. We keep breathing. We wake up in the morning and amazingly, I'm shocked by this every morning, amazingly, the world has continued to function without my input for the last 6 to 8 hours. Incredible, isn't it? We can be still because God is working his purposes out. Maybe for some of us that might be an encouragement. Maybe to take a moment this weekend, maybe just quite literally just to be still and just to sit and be aware. We have a God who is achieving his good purposes. We can trust him. And I think there's a message here for those folks who may be still working out where they stand in relation to this God. I said this is a picture of life for God's people. And I think the message to those who are still looking in, not yet God's people, is be still and know that he is God. I think the be still here might be to lay down your weapons. This God is bringing history to one conclusion, and one conclusion only: Jesus Christ on the throne. And the psalmists are called to align ourselves with that reality, to come to him for refuge, not to resist him, not to fight against him. You see, if this God isn't our refuge, what do we have to look for? What can we depend on? I remember the very first time I preached this psalm was just after, I want to get this wrong, I think it must have been David Cameron was speaking of strong and stable, a government who would bring a strong and stable future. And this is not a political point about any political party, but just how many politicians have come and gone? How much has changed since he promised strong and stable? Strong and stable is what I want, but I've realised actually no one on earth can provide that ultimately, can they? Where are we looking for our strength and stability? The Lord says, be still and know that I am God. I will be exalted among the nations. I will be exalted in the earth. And so we get in final celebration the chorus one more time. The Lord Almighty is with us. The God of Jacob is our fortress. If you're a Christian believer here today, you are safe in these mighty walls, these arms of protection of the Lord our God, this fortress into which nothing can penetrate. Nothing can harm you if you're a Christian believer. If you're a Christian believer, there is a spring, a river of life from God himself at work in you. Life and joy and gladness are possible because of the presence of God with us, not just to protect from the enemies out there, but also to provide for us and give us gladness and joy. And all of us can know where history is going. God will be exalted. Christ will reign. And we're called to live in light of that reality, to be still and know that he is God. Let me pray.